always live and always wild. Hi everyone and welcome to the Africam show. You know how much I enjoy spending the next 45 minutes with you guys on a Tuesday. One of my favorite things to do on a Tuesday. I build everything else around it. I hope that you're all doing really well, and of course we are live and interactive, which means that I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know what you'd like to see on the cams today. Of course, any questions you may have, and also how you're enjoying the show. I have a nice crisp glass of water. Nothing fancy for me today. And I see that this unstriped ground squirrel seems to be enjoying better snacks than I am during the show. Well, let's get started. Casper's Third Ghost says, Happy Tuesday, everyone from Milwaukee. Steaming hot coffee ready. That sounds fantastic. And Zygote, you say namaste. Namaste to you too, Zygote. I hope that you're all doing really well. Keep those hellos coming in. And if this is the first time that you're joining us for the Africam show, please let us know. We love it when new people join our community. We'd like to give you a big warm welcome. And this is 45 minutes where you get to have a ranger or a guide with you, which is me, Trishala, at the moment. And you get to ask whatever you like. So maybe you've been watching the cameras and you've had some questions, or you've seen something that's been puzzling you. This is the time to chat about it, ask about it. Oh, how great is this ground squirrel? That looks like it's pushing through some, what looks like elephant dung that's been really broken down at the moment. At this time of the year, so we're looking at the Aldonio cam, that's where we see the unstriped ground squirrels. At this time of the year, the rains are starting to wane. Excuse me. And so this is kind of the last bits of elephant dung that's going to be nice and moist and easy to break apart. Later on in the year, the elephant dung can get quite hard. Still fine to break apart, but it's dry. And when it's dry, it's not really the best place for seeds, even though elephant dung can host a ton of seeds. There was one study that showed that elephant dung had 20,000 seeds in a single pile of dung. So you can imagine elephants are excellent seed dispersers. And not only dispersing seeds so they can germinate elsewhere, but also that little critters can find a meal. Oh, you are so charismatic. Don't you really just want to voice it? I do. But we're here for educational purposes, aren't we? We have some more hellos coming through. Ooh, a lot more. Mary Momo, you say, hello friends from Hot Springs, Arkansas. You can't wait to see what African wildlife has for you today, and you never stop learning. Never stop learning. I love that. We don't ever stop learning, whether it's the tiniest little thing or the tiniest little experience or just trying something new and even failing at it. It's all about learning, and we're learning all the time. Dear NC, you say good morning from sunny Seattle. You're ready for the show with your coffee. Of course you are. Oh, this guy is so amusing. If you're wondering how I can tell that it's a guy, just look between his back legs, and you'll see that, yes, he's very well endowed. With squirrels, it's very easy to tell if you just look behind the back or between the back legs. More often than not, when we see squirrels, you see them singly, even if they do roost at night in family groups. It's quite often to see them singly. So looking at body size and things like that is not the best way. I mean, that goes for all animals, really, except those that have very obvious sexual dimorphism. But if you're looking at a critter and there's no obvious differences between the animal you're looking at and the ones next to them, easiest way is to just have a look between their legs, because for mammals, it's usually a dead giveaway. Now the other one that came past looked like he wanted to get in on this action too. And yes, he was a he as well. I mean, really, this is a treasure chest. Imagine all the fruits elephants would be eating, particularly at a time when there's been plenty rains and it's warm, so trees are doing really well, they're fruiting, there's lots of juicy, ripened fruit all over the place. Elephants go about eating that fruit, and they're not going to take out the pips like we would. They're just going to swallow it whole. And all of that is an absolute treasure to smaller critters. And any hard exterior of nuts or stones, those would have all been softened by the elephant's digestive tract. Another cool thing that you might see coming out of elephant dung are mushrooms. And it's kind of the same things. Mushrooms release spores into the air, and I mean, at any given time there's mushroom spores or fungi spores in the air. But they're so tiny that we're not going to notice them. But I promise you that we're breathing it in, we're touching them, they're on us a lot of the time. Perhaps in areas where things are a little more sanitized, like in the city, not as much. And I say sanitized, I don't mean like clinical. I kind of mean less naturey. But if you're out in the bush or out in a forest or something like that, there's going to be spores all over the place. And those spores land on vegetation. And so as elephants strip leaves and things like that, those spores get an opportunity to move through their digestive tract, and then they come out in the dung pile, and then they pop out. All those lovely mushrooms, the fruiting bodies of those spores. This guy is having a ball. So busy. I think I have either, I'm not sure if it's a fortune or misfortune, but as a child, I was not allowed to have pets. It's sad, right? However, after a big fight on my 10th birthday, my parents gave in and got me a hamster. His name was Stitch. He lived for 5 years. He was an angry, angry animal. I'm not sure why. I gave him lots of love. Didn't keep him in his cage very much. Of course, my family hated that. But this unstriped ground squirrel reminds me a little of my little Stitch. A dwarf Siberian hamster. I was very proud of him. Ampico, you say happy Tuesday to all, coffee in hand and ready to enjoy the day. Thank you to all that brings us this amazing opportunity each week. And we deeply appreciate our gift of time and knowledge shared. Our pleasure, Ampico. And thank you for always including a little thanks to us when you say hello. We appreciate it very much. April Owl, you say good morning from rainy Connecticut. Happy to be here with your glass of cherry iced tea. Yes, sounds great. Jan Powers, you say hi everyone. Oh, Jan Powers, you're looking fancy today. You say a chai tea latte. Ready for the show. Very nice. Kauru, you say hi Trishala. Oh, Mindy Telepower's here. You say hey Trishala. Always a pleasure to have you on board. Catherine's here too. You say hello Trishala from Germany. Easter eggs and chai today. Nice. Jean Gale's also here. Jean says good morning from sunny Seattle. You're here with your coffee and lemon bread. Ooh, we've moved across now. We have a buffalo. Now this is King's Camp. And I must say the King's Camp waterhole is one that I have watched possibly more than I actually wanted to, because for the first month or so that I've been watching, or previously when I watched the King's Camp waterhole, not much happened at it. But since the installation of this particular cam at King's Camp, seems like things are picking up. Of course, that has nothing to do with the camera installation at all. That's just my human brain trying to make connections between things that are actually not connected. It's just about being at the right place at the right time. Always a pleasure to see a buffalo. Oh, yay! Catherine McKinney is here. You say, hi from US East Coast. It's your first time here. A big, big, warm welcome. Thanks for joining us, Catherine. And remember, you can send through any questions that you have. And I like to remind people that there is no such thing as a silly question. There are only silly answers. So if you have a question, you think it's silly, you think that it's obvious or whatever, it doesn't matter. We're all here to learn and help each other. If you want to send through a question, please do. Oh my goodness, guess who's rolled in? It's not Rolling Trouble, it's Bob from Kalamazoo. Bob says good morning. Good morning, Bob. Where is Rolling? Oh, there's Rolling Trouble. Rolling Trouble says, hi all from Washington, coffee and water. Nice. And Ada, Iowa, 1999, you say, hi from Ada and Katie, eating breakfast with you from Iowa. Lovely. Oh my goodness, could it be? I thought, were we going to be here? Are we going to be spending time? But we are. We're at HESC. We're at the Hoodspate Endangered Species Center. Oh my goodness, this has become one of my favorite cameras. Like I said, I don't like to choose favorites ever. And I did say that Old Donio used to be my favorite. Stop talking, Trishala. You just said you don't pick favorites. But now we have our two paddy sheep here. Licorice. Oh, I'm going to remember the other one's name. She's also lovely. Don't tell me, Kirsten. Don't tell me. Millie. It's Millie. Millie and Licorice just going about their business here in the boma, with the rest of the inhabitants at the back there, which are actually the stars of the area. That's the rhinos. I wonder if Peter will be up and about. Peter's the smallest one, and the one that we, or at least I, just can't speak when he comes along. Teddy Lad Lulu, you say good afternoon from a spring day in Cheshire. GMT only an hour behind us now. Yay! That makes viewing African wildlife a little easier. Lily May 6 Ohio, you say greetings to all. Happy to be part of this. We're happy for you to be part of it too. So we spent basically all of Tuesday last week in this boma. Oh, hello, Millie. Did you hear us talking about you? You turned to look at us? No? Millie's, I think Millie's got an attitude, and I like it. Go on, Licorice. Follow Millie. So we spent the majority of our time on Tuesday in this boma, last week Tuesday, and we just couldn't get enough of it. It was really nice. We got to see almost all of the rhinos. There's 6 in total here at this boma. Esme is the largest one, Peter is the smallest one, and then there's also Mango, there's Bula, there's Taba, and I'm missing one. Did I count Esme and Peter? Esme, Peter, Taba, Bula, Mango. Oh, maybe I was right. Maybe it was 5. And I was not sure, I think yesterday we did, last week, Tuesday, we did see all of them. Maybe I just invented a sixth one in my head. And oh, there, did you see Peter? Peter's the one that just flopped on the ground there on the left. Cutie pie. You can see that the light is nice and soft. So as we start moving well and truly into our autumn, day lengths are obviously going to get shorter. So this nice golden light is going to come up earlier than usual. And for large animals like rhinos, dense, when I say dense, I'm talking about their anatomy. There's nothing dense about them and their intelligence. But for those types of animals that have a dense body, being able to displace heat is really difficult. So as we move into autumn and the day lengths get shorter, it's going to offer them a lot of relief. Now, I haven't watched them all day for several days, which is a great thing actually, if you can manage to do that, and maybe note down things about their routine. I'd love to learn about that, love to know a little bit more about them, because last Tuesday, which is the same time we were watching them as well, they were kind of, not really eating too much. They were off to the side, a few of them, and then Esme wasn't too happy there. But we saw a lot of drinking. They went to the trough, they drank a little bit. We saw one individual in the little pan as well. So there's a lot more cooling off happening. And today, it's a lot less of that, at least for now. Everybody is focused on eating, and poor Peter is finding it difficult to get in there. Esme looks like she's just taken over the whole pile. Don't want to share. Rolling Trouble, you say Peter is fun to watch. Yes, he is. He is so fun to watch. Hi, Latina from NC. You say, tell me about the sheep. So Millie and Licorice are two petty sheep. A petty sheep is a variety of sheep that we get here in South Africa. And they're sheep that are known for their kind of caring maternal instincts. So they were brought into the boma specifically to help the younger individuals, the calves. And Peter has been with his petty sheep for a long time, and they've been together and transitioned into the boma together. Licorice was Peter's kind of sidekick, chaperone, caregiver. But specifically, Latina, you wanted to know, you say that Millie seems to need a shave in the African heat. Does she? Will she? No, she won't. At least not as far as I know, because I said petty sheep are a breed that you get in South Africa. She would be perfectly fine without a shave. If she needed to be sheared, I'm sure that the people at HESC, Hoodspred Endangered Species Center, would do something about that. But I don't think I've ever seen a petty sheep fluffier than Millie is at the moment, and I don't think they do get fluffier than that. So being a breed that exists in Southern Africa and has lived with the heat for generations, it shouldn't be a problem for her. Catherine McKinney, you'd like to know, do rhinos like water like hippos do? They definitely like water, but I'm not sure there's really any non-marine mammal that likes water more than hippos. And that's because hippos have completely adapted to having a semi-aquatic lifestyle. So while rhinos would be able to survive during a drought, if there's only little bits of water around, or if you give a rhino water in a bowl, because they're only really using it to cool down, rhinos would be able to survive. But hippos won't, because hippos have adapted to that semi-aquatic lifestyle. So for a hippo, if there's no water around, they're going to keep moving until they find water. Not only will they drink water like the rest of the mammals on the planet, but they also need water to make sure that their skin is nice and protected and moisturized. And hippos are territorial, and their territories are the water bodies that they live in. So if there isn't water around, they're going to really suffer. They're not going to be able to have a territory, because they're not going to. The whole point of a territory is that you can keep resources. And for a hippo, the water is the most precious resource. So if there's no water around, it's pointless to have a territory. If there's no territory, it means that you won't be able to protect your females or keep your females and your calves. So you'll lose your dominance in that area. You no longer have a territory, you no longer have any females to protect, you no longer could have any calves. And essentially, having a territory and protecting resources comes down to the ability to procreate, because he wants to attract females, and females want water and want protection. Hippos we're talking about here. So, and if there's no water around, additionally, their skin would begin to crack. They would lose condition. They wouldn't be able to drink water either, but that's a problem shared amongst many different animals if there's no water around. But for hippos, it's just that much worse. Now for rhinos, rhinos don't have the delicate skin that hippos do. The only time they will be using water is to drink and to wallow, to cool themselves down, cool down their skin and their bodies. But even if there's insufficient water to wallow, but there's enough to drink, there's other things rhinos can do. They can go under trees, sit in the shade, find spots in drainage lines, so like, dry riverbeds or dry stream beds, and sit in there. So there's a lot of behavioral changes they can make to survive a drought, as long as there is some water to drink. So yes, they do love water, Catherine, but I wouldn't say as much as hippos. Now these guys are chomping away, and like I said, it is cooling down, so I expect to see a little bit of movement after they've gobbled up all they need to. And we'll come back here before our time together ends. But let's go back over to Eldonio, because I've got a couple of interesting questions that don't really have to do with the rhinos. And I think Peter can be way too distracting. All right, here we go. Back at Eldonio. Oh my goodness, is this not... I love this shot. I wish I was there with the camera. So we're back looking at our unstriped ground squirrel. Oh, too much going on in my head. It's just that we have both of these animals in shot. The impala at the back, the unstriped ground squirrel in front of us, and they're both eating in such different ways. The impala at the back is busy chewing on its cud. You can see the movement of its jaw side to side as it's masticating, which is, of course, the word for really breaking it down, chewing, grinding, all of that mass. And we have Mr. Ground Squirrel here that's using his front incisors, his teeth right at the front, because the ground squirrel is a rodent, using those incisors to peel back the shell of this nut that it's trying to get into. So busy, so busy. Now, I said that I had a few interesting questions that didn't really have to do with the rhinos, and because Peter is just so distracting, I couldn't get into them. So let's get into it now. Where are you, Mindy? There you are. Mindy, you say, hi Trishala, you saw a nighttime clip of a white-tailed mongoose and made you wonder, are some mongoose diurnal and some nocturnal? Yes, a white-tailed mongoose is nocturnal, but the majority of other mongoose are diurnal, in fact, strictly diurnal. So if we compare a dwarf mongoose, a banded mongoose, with, oh, we had a little problem there, but we are now back. So we're at Oliphant's River. What is this? It does look like a hippo, but something's not. Oh, okay, you are alive. I thought it was a dead hippo there for a second. All is good. All is good. Yeah, Mindy, so the white-tailed mongoose is nocturnal. What was I comparing it to? Dwarf mongoose, they're strictly diurnal, so they really would be turning in at about this time. When I say turning in, they'd be around the termite mound that they want to spend the evening in. They'll be just sitting there, collecting sun, and they won't be out and about actually foraging too much. Between now and say 5, they're pretty much wrapped up for the day. They'll be opportunistic around their burrow, of course, but other than that, nah. They'll be turning in. So yeah, different species of mongoose can have different cycles. But white-tailed mongoose are definitely nocturnal. You're not going to see them during the day. I have tried. And if you're wondering why that is, why would some mongoose be so strictly diurnal and others still be diurnal but not as strict as a dwarf mongoose, and then others, like a white-tailed mongoose, be completely nocturnal, it all comes down to competition and niches. So and you see that across the board. You see that across different groups of mammals. You see that across different insects as well. Moths tend to be out at night, butterflies during the day, and it's all because there is a gap. The less competition you can create for yourself, I mean on an evolutionary timescale, the better. So if the majority of other mongooses are spending time during the day foraging, the white-tailed mongoose has the advantage of less competition, direct competition with other mongoose, that is, by foraging at night. So it's all about those gaps. So imagine there's like a table with different blocks, all aligned on top of each other, and there's gaps in those blocks. And you don't have a rectangular block, so you gotta like trim it down to fit. You're gonna trim it down so that it fits in those gaps. You're not gonna try and trim it down so it fits on top of another tile. It just doesn't make sense because that gap is not available. You'd be competing for space with that other tile, so you'd want to fill those gaps. So if that's a nice visual representation of what happens at an evolutionary scale when selection works on an animal. Or, well, not on an animal, not an individual, but the group. Oh, Catherine, if I knew that there was going to be a hippo here, I would have answered your question when we were here, but I didn't. And then Karu had an interesting question. Sorry, I'm just reading it through. Karu, you'd like to know, why do birds lower their wings when sitting? Is it because they're just resting? That's what you think it means. Anyways, I mean, it could be that they're just resting. But, sorry, I just stopped there because we could hear the hippos in the background. So Kaoru, maybe think of it the other way around. Birds only need to raise their wings when they want to fly. There are other occasions when they would spread out their wings, like if they're trying to think of a lapwing trying to protect its nest, that it kind of runs towards a potential threat with its wings spread out. They may spread out their wings when they're mating. That's just for balance. But that moving their wings is associated with activity. So like you said, it could just be that they're resting, but instead of thinking about the fact that, oh, they're birds, they have wings, they fly, that being their main thing, and so they should always be using their wings, think of it the other way around. They're only using their wings at certain times. All other times, they're not going to use their wings. And flapping wings, not just to create lift, but just flapping them around for balance and things like that, that takes up a lot of energy. So I think it's a combination of what you're saying, that they're just resting, which is absolutely true, and the fact that most of the time, if there's no activity going on, they don't have to use their wings. Now, Kaoru, this sort of reminded me of a question that you had a couple weeks ago. I think it was you, Kaoru, and you said you were asking about birds that hop and birds that walk. And then Arlene, who I don't think is with us as well, then spoke about what about parrots and parakeets and things. They're kind of like in between. So anyway, I went and I did a little more research, and I found that it's not strictly one or the other, but generally speaking, birds fall into two groups. They either hop or they walk, and they most of the time, but there are some that will do both. And it, like we spoke about last week, it has a lot to do with what's most energy efficient for that bird. But apart from that, birds that hop tend to live in trees, so they can hop between branches. Hopping is a lot easier than kind of like, doing a bit of a balancing act like an acrobat and walking along little spindly branches. So those birds that strictly hop tend to live in trees. They also tend to have a different anatomy, which I think is very interesting. They have adjustments to their pelvis that allow them to, like anatomical adjustments to their pelvis through evolutionary time again, that allows them to create more force as they hop as well. Also, those birds that have less movement in their necks tend to hop, because they can hop from side to side to kind of compensate for the lack of movement in their own necks. So, for example, an owl, you're not going to see it hopping about like you would a canary, because they have a lot of movement in their neck, but also they're a big bird. Hoppers tend to be smaller birds, exception being penguins. And those animals that walk and run tend to be ground birds. Or let's say those birds that tend to walk or run tend to be ground birds, which make a whole lot of sense. Can you imagine if you saw a flamingo trying to hop? That would be something. Anyway, Kaoru, I just wanted to, because it popped in my head again, and I said to you that I would research it further. I wanted to get back to you. Mary Momo, you'd like to know, what are these trees on the banks of the Olifants River? These are fig trees. They're strangler figs. They are beautiful, aren't they? It looks like there's actually quite a variety of different figs in the area. Not all of them look stranglery, but you are absolutely right. They have a lot of character. The other common fig that we get in the area are rock figs, but I can't say that these look like rock figs. I must admit I'm no fig expert, though, but they do have a lot of character and they're very beautiful, as you say. And we don't really get to see them very often, which is a shame. Perhaps we need to go to olifants in person to spend some time with those figs. Anyway, off we are back to Tau in Madikwe Game Reserve, where I can definitely tell you I haven't seen a fig. Oh, perhaps I have seen a rock fig actually, now that I think about it. Whenever I'm in this reserve, when it comes to trees, that is, I kind of get blown away by the amount of sickle bush. Blown away. There's so much sickle bush. But there's also a very beautiful tree called a shepherd's tree that you don't see up in the low veld as much as you see down here at Tau. Casper's third ghost. That's interesting. You're looking at, you're thinking about olifants just earlier. You said, is there a dead animal behind the hippo on the bank? I did see a vervet monkey. I wonder if that's what you were looking at. We can go back and have a look just now, but I'm sure that Kirsten Max would have also seen it and told me. But I did see a vervet monkey, quite blurrily at the back of the hippo. Maybe that's what we were looking at. Well, this is a very nice herd of Wildebeest. Things are looking dry at Tau, huh? We're not looking at the actual dam bit at the moment, but just looking at the soil, it's looking dry. Also look at the kind of the rolling hills behind them. If we go a little wider, we'd be able to see the different kind of layers and peaks and valleys. Remember when the rains first started to come in, how green everything was, lush and green. Now you're starting to see the soil and the rocks between the plants, between all that vegetation, and it's starting to get dry again. It's not a good or a bad thing, it's just a thing, it's just something that happens. I really like it. I like when we change seasons and the way everything just responds. Migrant birds start to leave. The bush gets thinner, grasses get yellower, leaves start to fall. Those fragrant summer smells cease, the air gets colder, crisper. It's a wonderful experience, the changing of the season. And like I've said to you before, here in the majority of Africa, or majority of Southern Africa, let's speak of what I know. There's not really four seasons, it's just kind of a wet season and a dry season. But I say majority of Southern Africa because we don't all align the same. Where I'm here in Cape Town, we have winter rains and no rains in the summer. And we have a pretty distinct autumn and spring, whereas the majority of the rest of Southern Africa, a dry season and a wet season is more appropriate, because the difference between summer and spring or autumn and winter is pretty minimal. Oh, Zygote and Kauru, thank you very much. Yeah, just appreciating the info that we were chatting about with the birds. And Kirst has just told me, Casper's third ghost, that it looked like it was just a branch that was behind that hippo. Hooray! It's an elephant. Hello, Ellie. Oh, you look a bit showy. What's going on? There is no better way for me to end our time together than spending our last 3 minutes with elephants. Oh, there goes one of those dust devils again. Don't take on about elephants, goodness me. Christy, you reckon those are sycamore figs on the Olifants River? Maybe. I know that they get sycamore figs further up in Africa, East Africa, but not really down South Africa. Maybe at the very, very, very top. But I could be wrong as well. But we'll have to have a look. Either way, we can agree that those are ficuses or figs. Oh no, we're frozen. Oh, yes, undone. I think I miss elephants most whenever I'm away from the bush. So this is another thing. We were talking about, it looking so dry all of a sudden. Well, not all of a sudden, but you know what I mean. Here, Tower's looking dry. Like, it's there. Dry season's here. Another thing to notice is dust. We said that we would notice changes in the leaves, changes in the thickness of the bush, changes in water levels at water holes, obviously. But the other one is dust. You start seeing dust again. You start to see animals kicking up sand as they move about. Something that we don't, like, you forget that you don't see it in the wet season. You don't, because the soil is so nice and moist that there's only really specific small areas where it's received a lot of sunshine and dries quickly that you can get some dust. But other than that, it's one of those things that you don't notice. But as soon as it comes back, you do notice it. Oh, thank you, Kirst. Thanks, Christy. Kirst just told me that there are sycamore figs on the Olifants River bank. But we'll look, or I'll do a little bit of research and see what the distribution of the sycamore fig is, whether it actually does just come down into South Africa on the eastern, on the top and then the eastern edge there. Well, I've got a lot of homework to do, And I'm really, really glad that we could spend this time together as usual. It's always a pleasure. I love learning with you and from you, and I love learning for you as well. So thank you for your questions and your comments. Oh, a last one. EcoNut says elephants are the best. And on that note, thank you everyone. I'll see you on Thursday and again for the Africam show on Tuesday. Bye for now.